here's the new mid-ranger from Samsung, the Galaxy F54. And Samsung claims there are 4 revolutionary things about it. Let's talk about it. Let's start by looking at the design. Objectively, it's a large device, obviously, since it has a 6.7-inch display, and so naturally, it's not something you expect to use comfortably with just one hand. The crazy part is that this device comes with a massive 6000 mAh battery, and yet it isn't as bulky or thick as you might have expected it to be. But you know what's revolutionary is that the camera housing here looks a lot like the camera housing of the Galaxy S23 flagship series. And so if you see those independent camera islands, it's definitely something that's borrowed from Samsung's best of the best. Now, it's not exactly a super flat display. It does have a slight roll at the edges. The bezels, well, they're there, but they aren't too thick in my opinion. Now, you do get Gorilla Glass 5 display protection in the front, but I anyway recommend that you get a screen protector just in case. Now, the back is all plastic. And plastic comes with its own advantages and disadvantages. It keeps the device light in weight and price. And it's not prone to scratches or shattering. And so with plastic, you could be a bit more carefree, so to say. Other than that, it is a dual SIM device. It comes with a micro SD card slot, so you can expand storage by up to 1 TB. And the base storage on this is 256 gigs for the price. So that I think is really super. Now I've got the silver here that kind of reflects a lot of other colors, but there's also a blue that you could go for if in case this is a bit too loud for your taste. The silver one does attract fingerprints and it shows, and so the blue one might be a bit better in this case. Also, there's no in-display fingerprint sensor, but you do have the power button doubling as a fingerprint sensor. It's super fast, conveniently placed. I have no complaints. Oh, and haptics on this are a little better because Samsung this time has opted for a linear motor as opposed to the usual DC motor, so definitely a good move. Now, the display. Pretty good. 6.7-inch, Super AMOLED Plus, and as you'd expect, very colorful, very rich, and super sharp. And it is an HDR display, so obviously HDR titles on Netflix can be enjoyed the way they were supposed to be. The only one downside that I would say is that this does not have stereo speakers, so you're probably better off with a pair of wireless earphones with the F54. Oh, and it is decently bright for outdoor viewing, so typically you'll get about 420 nits of brightness, which isn't quite as high, but fear not, if it's actually very bright outdoors, the display jumps to a peak of 800 nits, which is sufficient. And now, and believe it or not, out of all the revolutionary things that Samsung claims, the cameras on this thing are actually quite good. Let me explain, but first let me just get the specs out of the way. There's 108 megapixel primary with optical image stabilization, an 8 megapixel ultra wide lens, 2 megapixel macro, and a 32 megapixel front camera, which by the way records videos in 4K. Now here are some samples I shot using the primary lens, and I have to say that this is easily one of the best camera smartphones that Samsung has released in this price segment. The pictures are actually very well balanced. I mean, even if you just look at the greens, they generally used to be too much sharpening in these photos, but this time Samsung has done a good job. Except in HDR mode, sometimes things may seem a bit unnatural there. Indoor photos also turned out to be really good, and despite below average lighting all around, the F54 did take some good noise-free photos and it handled artificial light quite well. Rarely though, I did see some highlights that used to get a little bit overexposed, but that's about it. And here are some ultra-wide photos on the right. It's basically a slightly warmer tone than the primary, and other than that, nothing too crazy, quite average I would say. Shots in portrait mode came out beautiful, very nice edge detection, and it even clicks some difficult to detect shots quite well. Also, all of these photos can be downloaded using the link in the description, so you can actually just check out the quality of these photos by yourself. Alright, coming to selfies, and despite not having a photogenic face, I would say they came out quite well. Skin looks good, texture looks good, details could be improved, but at this price point, I'd give it a green signal. Even in low light, it was better than what I expected. It could focus, not too noisy, a little soft, but definitely usable. And now let's talk about the 4K video recording capability, and I'm genuinely impressed. First of all, it's got OIS. And despite quite a bit of careless walking here, the footage seemed quite stable. If you shoot carefully, this could be very smooth. The colors too seem very natural. They're not overly contrasty, which is just perfect. Again guys, all of this is available for you to download. The link will be in the description. Alright, so guys, this is a sample of using the front camera for recording videos, and it can shoot up to 4K at 30 FPS. And frankly, you'd actually be hard-pressed to find phones in this price segment that offer 4K video recording from the front camera. So I think it's great for, creating content, and if you do that using the front camera, I think it's pretty good. Now I'm recording using the built-in microphones, so the audio is as good as it sounds right now. And yeah, there's no Pro mode for the front camera, which is fine. Again, you'll not find any phone that has Pro mode in the front camera, except for in flagships like, the Galaxy S23 Ultra. But yeah, other than that, I think it's pretty good. But now let's talk about low light photos, or as Samsung says, nightography. And that is actually quite good on this phone. So first of all, it'll automatically switch to night mode if it feels that there's inadequate light around you. Next, it actually does a pretty good job with keeping the noise to the minimum and ensuring it's decently detailed. So it uses Nona binning, where 3 pixels combine to 1, thereby absorbing more light and therefore a bit more detail. Actually, I'm just gonna go out and say it that in this price segment, the Galaxy F54 probably has one of the best low light photography capabilities. But you know what's even better? Low light videos. Look at this low light footage that I shot. There's no breathing, there's no focus shift happening. It's nice and clear as far as I can see. And you know what? Go ahead and download this sample footage. I'll leave a link in the description, but just try to get a sense of how good this is. And it's actually their optical limit stabilization combined with the VDIS algo that gives you that clean, crisp, low light video footage. Now in the camera software, you do get a Pro Photo and Pro Video mode that lets you manage, ISO, aperture, white balance, and even manually control focus. You could go ahead and also set hue, saturation, tint, contrast as well. Other than that, there are all of these modes that you could use. And by the way, in hyperlapse mode, if you click here, it gives you a mode that is specifically designed to capture night trails. And guys, again, if you think about it, nightography and OIS plus VDIS, and all of this was actually introduced with their flagship series, the Galaxy S22 if I'm not wrong. And it's really good to see that they're bringing all of that innovation into their mid-rangers like the F54. So you do get quite a bit of technology at this price point here. So it's definitely something for those who enjoy going on treks or camping and they don't mind shooting the occasional clear night skies. Alright, the fourth and probably the most revolutionary thing about the F54 is its battery. So it's got a capacity of 6000 milliampere hour, and that is insane. It's easily going to last you full 2 days of use with no charging required in between. It's absolutely massive. In fact, this can also act as a power bank, so you can take a Type-C cable and just charge any other device with it. And although you're not going to need to charge it very frequently, especially not once in 2 days, but it does support only 25 watt charging speeds. And so when you do charge it from a 0 to 100, it's going to take you a little over 2 hours. So just something to be aware of. But if you think about it, given that it has a massive battery and a pretty decent set of cameras, it is a really good choice for those who are looking for round-the-clock content creation, because cameras, and especially shooting videos, takes up a lot of battery. And given that it's got 6000 milliampere hour, if there's any phone that's going to last you the most, it's probably the Galaxy F54 in this price segment. Alright, now let's talk about performance. This has an Exynos 1380 processor with 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of UFS 2.2 storage. Now the Exynos 1380 processor, it's not known so much for its raw power, but more to do with power efficiency. So it is really battery efficient. In daily use, it's decent at best, and because the internal storage is UFS 2.2, the launching of apps and switching between them may not feel super snappy. I mean, honestly, it's nothing that's going to get in the way of you, being productive. Like, it's not going to slow you down or anything, but it's not going to be as snappy and as fast as flagships. But hey, look, in terms of gaming, you're not going to feel any kind of slowdown. I could play Call of Duty at max graphics and high frame rate without any issue. I was playing online, multiplayer, and it was all good. No heating, good touch response. It was enjoyable. But guys, look, again, it's a lot about optimization. Even with this processor, they're able to give you 4K recording from both the back and the front cameras. They're able to give you amazing nighttime low light videos and photos, and yet give you really good battery. So that way, I think it's really well optimized. And sure guys, you might feel that there are other phones at the same price that are giving higher performing processors. True, but I don't think that's how the F54 is positioned. Look, there's a huge market out there who doesn't care so much about performance as much as they do about longevity in terms of phone use on a single charge. And the entire game of this phone is to be really battery efficient, and it wins at that. Alright guys, let's jump to the software. Okay, so you get Android 13, One UI 5.1 right out of the box, and you get 4 years of Android upgrade. So you get all the way up to Android 17 guaranteed. And honestly guys, Samsung is actually one of the best out there when it comes to system updates. So I think that part is pretty well covered. Now guys, it is the usual One UI. So if you've been using Samsung phones up until now, you'll be pretty familiar. I've actually done a ton of videos. I'll leave a playlist here. If you're interested, you could go through that. But you know what? Let me take you a few of the highlights. First of all, you do have the ability to increase virtual RAM by up to 8 gigs, so it adds more to your multitasking power. When you're on a call, there's something called as voice focus that uses AI to reduce noise and makes you sound really clear on calls. Of course, there's the always-on display, so you can customize that based on how you like it. Also, there are a couple of photo editing tricks that are built right into the gallery. So for example, you can erase reflections from a photo, or remove shadows from a photo, or even remove unwanted objects within a photo. If you think a photo looks too dull, there's Photo Remaster that tries to make it look better. And on top of all of this, you get all the tools that you need to ensure that you stay productive and make the most out of your phone. Oh, do note one thing, there is no support for good lock, so if you know, you know. Alright guys, so overall, I think you should really consider the F54. If you're thinking about getting a really good camera smartphone with a lot of battery capacity, I think that's where this phone fits beautifully. And obviously it still has a really good display, it's got a very good screen size, and you're really covered from a software perspective since you do get 4 years of Android upgrades. So I think it's going to last you pretty long. And if there were any improvements that I would suggest for this phone, that would be faster charging and probably better materials for the back panel and maybe some sort of IP certification for water resistance. I think that would have really made this phone durable. Anyway, that's it guys about the Galaxy F54. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section. And as always, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel guys, and hit that bell notification icon, and mark all, really helps the channel grow. I'll see you guys in the next one.